Today we're going to be talking about women and adult games. We're going to get into why we don't see more women in this space and talk about some research on what women seem to like. I'll also go into some games that I think explore the flavors that women enjoy pretty well. Joining us today is Marina Montague.
Hello, hello.
I hope I said that right. She is a voice actor for the visual novel Ravager, a game where you play as a dragon and increase your reputation by building an army, conquering lands, and even creating a harem to join you on your conquest. And I've got to say, I am so excited to have you on this podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, I guess we'll just, jump right into it and kind of just talk about why we don't see more women playing adult games.
Yeah, sure.
Do you have any thoughts?
I would probably say, there's not a lot of female focused content out there. In most of the H games that you can play, you are a male protagonist. And a lot of them, it seems to focus more about jumping straight to the sex, whereas a lot of stuff where women are concerned, if you look at any erotica or book talk, literally anything like that, there's a lot of story, there's a lot of slow build, there's a lot more teasing and seduction. So maybe that's where they're slightly different.
I agree. The teasing aspect that you see in a lot of written erotica is not really, a primary focus in most adult games, and that can definitely be a reason why. I mean, we're gonna get into what the flavors of women usually like for what research really shows, the limited research.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that women tend to talk about when they consume erotica is the idea of romance. And one of the issues with romance is that it's like saying a nice day. Everyone has a different interpretation of it. Everybody has a different idea of what it means. We all see the appeal in it, but it's breaking down what exactly does romance mean in the context of the consumption of adult content.
Yeah, and I mean, like, a nice day for me is like a rainy, stormy day, but a nice day for another person might be, a sunny, bright, flowers blooming kind of day.
That's because you don't like to leave the house.
Oh, well, I can't really say anything to that.
You're like,
fine.
The rain is an excuse to stay home.
I guess that is true. I don't like getting wet, but I do like watching the rain from like inside the house.
With a nice tea.
Yeah. No, like a nice book or a movie on.
So what you're saying is you should live in England.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or Seattle.
Or Seattle.
You were talking to me earlier about this idea of erotic tension.
Oh, mm-hmm.
As maybe that's one of the parts of romance. You want to...
Well, I mean, erotic tension, think of it as like a slow burn. Most people think of that as a slow burn. So,
Mm-hmm.
You have all of this, you have usually just two people, and then you have that, progression into the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have like them talking to each other, connecting with each other, but not really doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it builds that tension for people, kind of like narrative foreplay.
Uh-huh.
So kind of like that.
Okay,
so yeah, before we go any really further, so I should probably put out a disclaimer. So what we're going to be talking about today is going to go into women's preferences versus men's preferences. And I just want to assure people that this doesn't mean all women and all men. So just because a woman is more likely to like a thing, that doesn't mean that a man can't also like that thing, and vice versa. We're all different. We all like our flavors. There is a higher percentage of the population liking something, so that's what this comes down to. And I'm just going to be going by the limited data that we have, and yeah, I feel like that's a sufficient disclaimer.
And you're going to link all the studies at the end of the podcast like you normally do on the Patreon. So I think you broke down 5 different things that women tend to like more than men, and 5 different things that men tend to like more than women. The first that women seem to prefer more than men is the pleasure depicted by the female character in the porn appeared to be real. Then the characters, male and female, seemed to demonstrate that they had a connection with one another. Then it was sensual foreplay, caressing, kissing, stroking occurred for at least 5 minutes before sexual intercourse occurred. And then there was another one, the female characters seemed to enjoy herself. And then the final one was that the character seemed to be natural, to look natural.
Yeah, natural looking bodies.
Which is funny given what you talked about last week.
Yeah, the exaggerated, idealized kind of forms.
Which,
well, I guess natural looking could be considered idealized.
Which makes me wonder, what is the percentage of men that are furry versus women that are furry?
Oh, gosh.
Would that be something that skews massively male?
I don't know. I'll see if there's research on that. I'm not gonna say
furry
that
research.
Furry research. I don't think there's gonna be a lot, but I can see. Yeah, maybe we'll talk about that next time.
All right. And with men, men tend to like more than it's so. There's certain things that men and women are both gonna like. We're not looking at that. We're looking at where the gaps are, where the differences are. Mm-hmm. And then the 5 things with men are men tend to like more than women when the male partner is rough with the female partner, when the female partner is called derogatory names, when the female character has had plastic surgery or fake or exaggerated proportions, close-ups of penetration of sex acts, and then money shots.
Mm-hmm. Which are just cum shots, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I think that's just the nice way.
I guess so, yeah.
I think they were called that because in early pornography, that was where, we got to do that because that's what's going to make us all the money in the sales.
Oh, I thought it would be like you pay more money to get those kinds of shots.
I have no idea.
I don't know.
I don't know either. That'd be interesting. But I guess...
But I feel like the way you're talking about it right now makes me feel like one of those like silent films where like you have like the music is like do 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 and it's like
all right.
some old timey stuff. Like I said in the disclaimer, it's not going to be all women and all men. This is just what the generalized research has shown. But I've kind of, for the games that I'm going to be talking about, I've categorized them into 3 different sections. So story-driven, where it's more likely to show a connection, and where there's more opportunity for sensual buildup. And then we have women enjoying themselves. And then we have natural-looking bodies. And I think those 3 categories, I have like 2 or 3 for each category, and that
2 or 3 games.
Yeah, 2 or 3 games for each category that I think show these flavors really well. Well, I mean, do you find these flavors like does this sound like oh okay, I can see myself reading, for example, like erotic fiction that have these types of flavors?
Yes, I think so. So I remember a little bit earlier you were talking about romance being the main kind of driver behind everything. And you were saying, well, romance means different things to different people. But if you kind of break down what romance is, it's basically knowing and being attentive to your partner. So if you know that your partner is into books and rainy days and everything, you'll curate your kind of interests around that thing. If you know that they're really into, D&D or whatever it is, you will find some way to connect via that. And romance is applicable to both sexes. And if, taking this into real life, if people do want to keep the spark alive, just be intent on your partner and find out what they're into and curate stuff via that. That's what I really, really like in all of the games, and it brings it to the connection thing. So if you're looking at, say, even book talk, like dark romance, you're getting people getting kidnapped, you're getting all that kind of shenanigans. For every single one of those, it's always, he will know exactly where to find her, like exactly what she likes, exactly all of this stuff, and it just breaks down into how well you know your partner and can connect in that way, whether it is a straight up dark book talk thing of kidnapping to fairy tale princess to whatever it is. And it's for both sexes because, guys want to feel loved and appreciated too. the smallest thing of just telling someone like, hey, I appreciate you, it goes such a long way in connection and sparking intimacy. And that's just a human thing, and it spreads across games as well.
Yeah, I do think the story-driven games that I picked out do kind of get that kind of connection between those two people.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's them learning about each other and
Yeah.
building up from there.
Yeah, especially, oh my god, I can talk. I get excited with this one game. It's called A Summer's End. That's exactly what you're talking about. How like these two characters, they care about each other, and there's a real connection and romance and love between them. And the story is fantastic in showing that, and it's just a good game.
How does the story show it?
Well, so I guess we'll go into the games now. So so. So, A Summer's End is, set in the 80s, and 1986 to be exact, in Hong Kong. And so you play as Michelle, and she meets Sam, and there's like this instant connection between them. But since it's set in Hong Kong in the 80s, the world they live in is, very conservative and doesn't approve of same-sex couples. So the connection that you're feeling between you and Sam is like confusing for you because you're now outside of what is quote unquote conventional in your society. And so you're having these feelings that you've never felt before. And so Michelle kind of goes on this journey where she has to decide if she wants to explore these unfamiliar feelings with Sam or keep to their society's rules and, just disregard these feelings. And so that's when a sensual buildup kind of could begin. You can, of course, choose to just ignore those feelings, but most people go after the feelings.
Is Sam a guy or a girl?
Oh, Sam is a girl. Sorry, I should have made that clear.
Oh no, you're all good. I am very, very happy either way.
So, yeah, Michelle is a girl and Sam is a girl. It's a lesbian romance. And so Michelle is introduced to this idea where she gets to choose if she wants to live this free life or if she wants to be controlled by the society. And so the story really goes into like personal things about like immigration and traditional customs and how breaking away from them, that could really relate to a lot of people. And I thought it was really cool to see this in an adult game because you don't see this in an adult game.
That's amazing.
I also liked how it was meta because you're looking back on the tale, you're looking back on the experience, and this is a game that was, the handover to China happened 10 years later, and in a lot of ways, this is her loss of innocence, and it's kind of a metaphor for Hong Kong's loss of innocence, as we have seen in the past, few years, the culmination of that. So, the game is banned in China, of course.
Yeah, of course.
So, but it is fascinating, and I really like the neon kind of
the
cyberpunk kind of feel.
Yeah, the anime 80s kinds of vibes, and it's shown in the visuals and also the music. And I think it does a great job at that, integrating the 80s kind of culture. I mean, I didn't live through the 80s, but
You're like, I wasn't alive.
I wasn't, but it looks like it could be in the 80s. I don't know.
You really like 80s movies, though.
That's true. So I feel like I know a good amount of 80s things.
At least this fetishized notion you have of the 80s as opposed to what it actually was.
Whatever.
Your little zoomer view of the 80s. I think you've got 2 other games.
Yeah, for the story driven. So the other one I have is called Chasing Sunsets. So in this game, your parents are dead. Big shocker. Well, usually one of them actually survives. If there is a death, and it's usually, the mom. And
so you can have a relationship with her.
Yeah, but in this one, it doesn't happen. You do get with your stepsister, though.
Of course.
So it's about a rich people, a rich people,
a rich family. It's about these. They're not human. They're rich.
It's about a rich family who gets I guess, more rich by
As they do.
as they do. The parents create like a company, and it's like it does really well, and so the two kids kind of grow up in this environment where you have a vacation home on the beach, you have a yacht that circles a private island, that kind of stuff.
Normal stuff. Oprah stuff.
Yeah. Things that we all
Who doesn't have a
experienced.
private island? Yeah, seriously.
So your business is now, I guess, without owners. So because your parents died,
Were the parents murdered like after you went to the theater, and this is like your origin story?
That could have happened. They
So
don't explain.
this is Batman.
It could be, yes, it could be. Oh yeah, because it's all rich stuff too, and Batman's rich. Oh my god, I forgot that.
How can you forget that?
I'm sorry. So the business now has, no owners. You and your stepsister, you haven't really seen each other since your childhood. Things happened in your childhood that it goes into, but you left on bad terms. And so you are kind of reconnected with your stepsister in, I guess, the force proximity kind of situation where you are both vying for the attention to get that business and be the sole owner.
So you're competing with her, and there's some level of erotic tension.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because of the underlying animus that was created by your departure.
Yes, and it's very much enemies to lovers kind of trope. So, which I thought was good for storytelling or story-driven games. But there's like this obvious connection between them. They just are too afraid to act on it, and they're just angry at each other. But you really just, you know what's going to happen because it's just like...
Is it a harem game?
Is it a harem game? There is another love interest that you can go towards. It's really between her and the stepsister.
And is it different endings based on that? Or are you kind of railroaded?
No, it's different endings. And with the sister, you can also get with another girl and kind of create like a poly relationship. So the most popular flavor in the space is harem games. Yeah.
Can you really build that genuine connection
with a harem?
With a harem.
I don't really think so, because what do you think, Maria?
I would say I know a lot of poly couples who would argue with that. But yeah, I think you can have genuine connections with everyone, whether it's mono or poly or in the harem game thing, you can have, in my opinion, and we have connections with people.
Is it harder, you think, or is it just different? From how it unfolds, what do you think the differences are?
From a storytelling point of view, it would probably just be the amount of time that you can spend on stuff. However, that's not really applicable to games because you can go back and play as many times as you want. It's just, stacking endings could be incredibly challenging for the devs. So if we get some super talented devs who can make a polycule, then yeah, go for it.
Like Baldur's Gate 3. Some of the characters tolerated that, and some of the characters were like, oh, hell no.
Yeah, because you get the guy, who's Halson.
Yeah.
The big guy.
Your bear.
Yeah, yes, the
your
bear.
Literal and figurative bear.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, he's like okay with you being with other people, but if you go to like, I think it was Gale, who was like absolutely not.
Like, I draw the line here.
Yeah, but he's like, it's either you or me. He has a British accent.
That was your British accent. Oh, I apologize for not recognizing it.
Oh, shut up. That was a great British accent.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
Anyways.
Is he fine with Asterion though?
Yeah, wait, no, yeah, I think Asterion was fine with it.
I think everybody's fine with Asterion. Because wasn't Halson your best girl for last year?
Yeah, he was. Because he was a bear, and people were like shocked that, oh my god, you could have sex with a bear? And I think it, put the furry flavor kind of on a spotlight that, people who don't really interact with that flavor were just experienced to it, It
was definitely introduced in a way that wasn't mocking
Yeah.
Except
yeah.
that squirrel. That squirrel was kind of...
Yeah.
That squirrel was judging.
Yeah. Dropping the acorn and everything. Just like, oh my god, that happened.
Of course, the fact that you can have a whole squirrel subplot talking to all the animals and everything is pretty
I don't
fantastic.
know why people were kicking the squirrel at the beginning. Like that was so
Brilliant.
like why are we kicking squirrels?
It's because D&D players are murder hobos. They're doing their natural
murder hoboing
This
thing.
is just who they are.
Only a little.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you kick the squirrel?
No.
No,
I
but
would never ever kick a squirrel. I would never kick a squirrel. But I am a murder hobo.
she's like, I would burn a village to the ground. I wouldn't kick a squirrel. Come on.
I mean,
Good, I have standards.
yeah, exactly. Like, what did the squirrel probably did nothing, but who knows? That village, it was looking pretty burnable.
That village was just asking for it. You should have seen what that village was wearing. I mean, oh my god.
Oh my god.
All that straw just sitting there,
Yeah.
It's like it's hard enough being a peasant as is.
And now you have no home.
I believe our guest British colonialism is showing.
Oh.
Maybe a smidge. It's fine.
Just a smidge.
I was bringing order to these peasants and heathens.
I was avenging the squirrel.
And now all of their
Exactly.
artifacts are in my museums.
Oh. Damn.
No, I would put them in a giant squirrel museum.
A giant squirrel museum where no squirrels live.
Oh man. Okay, so my third game was Price of Power, and so this is a very just romantic, monogamous kind of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
There is another character that you can get with, but it's mainly between the main male character and the main female character.
Most of the effort is spent on that.
Because you go. So the premise of the story is that you are going out with the main female character and exploring this like post-apocalyptic medieval-ish world after a major catastrophe, and finding out what happened. And then you get into like some sci-fi elements later on. It's a lot. The story is probably the most interesting of this game. It has such a way of world building that makes the world just seem like you want to know more about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
does it have a nice map?
it doesn't have a map.
Oh wow, I'm surprised, because usually
I
when you
know.
say things like that, it's because there's like this beautiful handmade map.
I know. I miss my maps. I love maps in games. but no, it did not have a map. If it had a map, that would be so cool. But
Are there any squirrels?
are there any squirrels? Not that I can remember.
Are there a lot of squirrel DAS models? Because I know there are like a ton
man.
of dinosaur DAS models.
On like dogs and cats, but I don't know about squirrels.
So squirrels may be underrepresented in
Honestly,
visual novels because
Yeah,
of the lack of DAS renders.
yeah. Someone needs to have like a squirrel pet in the
Just
next game.
a whole slew of squirrels.
Yeah, or maybe
What
it
is-
could be like in Rick and Morty, how like the squirrels can like talk to each other. Like I don't know if you've ever seen Rick and Morty, but there's like this there's this episode where like the squirrels are talking to each other, and Morty kind of realizes that they are talking to each other, and the squirrels are just like, oh, he's on to us. He knows that we can he knows we can speak to each other, and they attack him.
I had to look up what a group of squirrels is called.
Oh God.
A
Okay.
group of squirrels is called a scurry.
A scurry of squirrels.
Scurry of squirrels.
Oh, nice.
That's great.
That's some consonants.
Oh jeez.
Okay.
But yeah, for Price of Power, so yeah, it's a great story, great world building, and it has a really long build up. Like the build up is like one where you would be like, okay, it's 50 chapters plus of just the build up. So it really hammers into the sensual build up, and so and I think it explores it really nicely. In a very, romantic kind of way.
And so those were the story-driven games. And then what was the next category that you wanted to jump into?
The next one was women enjoying themselves.
And that was based on female pleasure being real and not faked, and women showing satisfaction.
Yeah.
Demonstrating satisfaction.
Yeah, and so I have 2 games for that one. Beauty and the Thug and Monstrous Love.
Can I ask a question first?
I guess.
I would think that, the pleasure depicted by the female characters in porn to be real. I would think that that would be a major voice actress thing. Because one of the ways that you can demonstrate pleasure is real is by authentically demonstrating that the woman is enjoying herself vocally. Do you think that impacts, or that is a part of it, or?
Well, I think voice acting does have a part in it. So, how women and men get turned on more by hearing the women.
Yeah.
Hearing the woman have, that sexual experience.
The fascinating thing for me about that data was even women who identified as completely heterosexual were still turned on by the sounds of other women enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that's like some hunter-gatherer throwback where we all had like no walls and sharing a field or a cave, or
Yeah.
if it's a sexual selection thing where, oh, that woman sounds satisfied, that means that the partner she has picked is able to do his job well, and I find that attractive.
Because, it's all about, finding the right mate. I mean, what do you think, Marina?
I think the real versus fake thing is probably based more off porn more than video game porn.
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 The internet is for porn.
I knew you were going to say that.
Well, just because I think a lot of porn in previous years that hasn't been, specifically female focused or just more open source, shall we say? The stuff where it's literally everyone on a set, if you can't get yourself there in front of however many people, you are going to have to fake it, and you can tell what's real and what's fake. And there's nothing more of a turn off than if your partner just going, of course, honey, that was wonderful.
I really.
Yeah, there's a big difference.
So that's interesting because both men and women appreciate if the pleasure depicted by the male character in the porn appeared to be real. So both men and women seem to really care about that. But we see the gap is where men don't seem to care as much as women do if the pleasure depicted by the female character appeared to be real.
Yeah, because we want them to have a good time. Like, I'd prefer for everyone to have a good time rather than one partner getting off. Obviously, that's going to be better to watch with 2 people enjoying themselves.
I do wonder if it's a confounding variable if it's porn. We know that men consume porn, visual video pornography at a rate higher than women. While men and women both consume adult content equally, men consume it in a greater amount than women, and men consume the visual stuff in a greater amount than women. So could it be that men are just used to that type of porn being faked, so it doesn't bother them as much as it would the women who are being exposed to it, because maybe those women aren't as familiar with the medium, and that could be a confounding variable in the data. This could be a situation where men care about female enjoyment as much as women do, just like women care about male enjoyment as much as men do, but it could be the medium is confounding the data.
Yeah, definitely. I think with the porn space opening up and like there being OnlyFans and stuff where you can upload yourself rather than it going mainstream studios, I think that's opening it a lot more, and with more amateur stuff coming out, I think that is opening it and making it slightly more accessible. I think it's also just the historical amount of shame that's linked to it. And like when you think really visual stuff, it's still quite a masculine, type world. Whereas a lot of the stuff for women, it's more tailored, it's literature, it's more teasing. So everybody consumes it, whether they want to admit it or not. But it's just the different styles. And that's all that it is.
Yeah, I do think that women kind of feel like a sense of comfort in seeing another woman enjoying herself, no matter what, the actual scene is detailing. Oh, you're enjoying this, so that means it's okay if I enjoy this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, especially with the flavors that are probably more shamed on, especially for women.
Wow, I had never considered that women would feel that they need permission to enjoy themselves, but I totally see where you're coming
God,
from.
yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My genitals are speaking for me. I apologize. It never occurred to me, and it makes sense from that, because the idea that I would need permission from somebody else to enjoy myself or not, I'm just like, well, fuck yourself. I don't need your permission. But
that sounds so nice.
I'm sorry. My privilege is showing, I guess. I
know.
apologize. Tell me what to like. Forget you, man.
Yeah, but that's the thing. But women are constantly told what they can like and what they can't like, and that's why there is so much shame attached to it. Of like, oh no, girls don't watch porn. Of course they don't. Like, yeah, we fucking do. It's just, everyone keeps it hidden, keeps it secret. It's the same with, like any of the erotica stuff. The stuff that is inside some of those books would make the most hardcore fanatic blush.
Yes.
But, it's hidden in a nice little book that no one can see with an innocent looking cover.
I totally agree. He has a face is like a totally innocent cover. Have you seen the books that are like...
I am comfortable admitting I'm still reeling from what I learned about the tampons last episode.
What about the tampons?
Where your mom is like, oh yeah, they didn't use blood to test tampons until very recently. They just used water, and now they're using something that simulates blood. And I was just like...
Well, yeah, because all the researchers were probably men.
It just blew my mind how that would go on for decades and decades. Like, I had no idea.
Well, women didn't get credit cards until 72, so...
No, I completely understand, especially if you live in a backwards former European country. It's got to be very difficult there. I hear you guys do have electricity, not air conditioning, but you do have electricity, so that's a good thing.
Well, at least they're not upside down.
At least they're not upside down. That's true. Hello to our penal colony listeners.
Penal.
All right. So what games do you have for female satisfaction?
Well, so I have two, like I said, Beauty and the Thug and Monstrous Love. And I think those two, the ones that I found are more of the women enjoying themselves, especially with Beauty and the Thug.
Okay.
So this is...
Even though we hate the title.
Yeah, the title is what it is. I can't really...
What
it could be.
What if the developer was Indian? Would the title be okay then? Because it's kind of like how certain rap music becomes okay if the singer is African American. Is this a case where the word would be all right if the developer was Indian?
Or what is thug?
It's
mean
the
again?
thuggy. It's racist. The British person can tell us.
Well, I was going to say the Thuggies were a sect of Indian people who would go and kill their victims by getting a rupee, dropping it in a scarf, whipping it around, and then strangling them. So that's where the origin of that comes from. But it's obviously been corrupted.
Oh wow!
And it's got a lot of racist undertone now.
Oh.
It's that whole part of that otherization.
Okay, so Beauty and the Thug. The setting is that you are a female protagonist and you are setting out to live on your own in a new city. You're following this journey of self-discovery for getting a job, meeting new people. Stop it.
I want to get a job.
Yeah, she can. She can get a job. I think the job that I chose was like a car washer. So, look, it was a car washer or like a secretary, and I was like, I've never played a game where you're a car washer. Let's just do that. Because
do you wash the cars in a bikini?
It does
okay.
progress
All
to
right,
that.
all right.
Yes.
Yeah, never mind.
You are in like the cleaning attire with like the big bodysuit kind of thing that you zip up so you don't get wet.
Okay.
But it does slowly come off.
Of course it does.
As you progress.
Of course it does. Okay.
So she gets a job. You meet new people. You're reconnecting with past friends, and you kind of decide for her what her life should be. like what the direction of the life should be. And so her living alone, this is the first time she's lived alone, and so she has the opportunity to discover her sexuality and, learning what she likes and she doesn't like. And so this goes into a lot of research, a lot of practicing, and
discovering her flavors.
Yeah, discovering what she likes. And it's obvious that she is enjoying what she's doing. And she is, I don't want to say consenting to all of it, but because it's not consent, but she is just okay with
She's role-playing that she is 100% on board.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, she goes through a lot of different flavors, like lesbian, and she experiments with sex toys, water sports, exhibitionism, and a whole bunch of others.
Like every orifice.
Honestly, yeah. And it's also very stat heavy. So you have a page where it explores like all of the flavors. It does like the body, what's it called? Where like the boobs have a percentage and...
Yeah, I think that's with regards to the exploring the flavors. Each thing is, okay, I'm turned on by boobs. Mm-hmm. I'm turned on by sticking things in certain parts. I'm turned on by this. And as you explore it, you do more and more, I guess we call it extreme things.
I guess,
yeah. Extreme feels judgy, though. I don't know.
I know.
Words are hard.
Words are hard.
Can you explain what you meant with the consenting, not consenting thing? Is it like a corruption-based game, or...?
Well, I didn't say consenting because it's you deciding what she wants to do, and so I don't know if it's her consenting to all of this, or if it's you doing the things to her. Because
especially
you do play
since there's a scene where she talks about... Am I actually making these decisions, or am I being controlled by some otherworldly power?
Yeah, so
and it's
like,
a little too meta, and it's like...
Oh, meta, very meta.
Yeah, so I didn't really know if it is consensual or not.
And I think, which is why you stick with your standard default consent definition for video games. It's between the developer and the player.
And the player.
And the pixels.
So the characters...
You and the pixels, that's good.
The pixels in the game... they may show the illusion of consent or non-consent, but they are merely the role play between the developer of the game and you, the player of the game.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't need the dragon and Ravager to ask for permission of the peasant that they're about to eat. That's okay. We understand that the dragon is not actually eating a person. There is no person. There is no dragon. This is all fiction.
Yeah.
At least the healthier people in society understand this.
And everyone on the project is consenting. Like that's our number one thing. Like nobody is forced into anything that they don't want to do on Ravager. So that's like, yeah.
You wouldn't believe how many times
everyone's on board.
They had to jab her with a cattle prod to get her to be able to say that naturally.
Oh, come on. That's awful.
So it's like, see, this is why you don't have her on video, because she'd be blinking out the Morse code for torture.
Wow.
She's like, he's a monster.
No, he's the best boss I've ever had, actually. He's very chill. And much, much, much nicer than some of the people in the entertainment industry. So yeah, go Foreman. He's a good guy.
Good team.
It's good. Okay, so the next game is called Monstrous Love.
Speaking of monstrous dragons.
Oh, yeah. This one actually doesn't have a dragon in it.
No.
I know. It has like this plant monster, okay, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what these monsters are called. They don't give a name for the monsters.
Because I think they're tropes.
Yeah.
And they leave it up to the I think it almost feels like abstracted fantasy, so you can like self-insert and you can kind of...
Yeah, it's basically that. And the monsters, there's three monsters. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so there's 3 short stories where women interact with monsters in various ways. And so each story is a different monster, is a different woman, and is different flavors, minus the monster flavor.
Yeah.
So, so you got a plant monster, you got a monster
I think
that
you got like
lives...
a Sasquatch.
Yeah, Sasquatch, kind of cave-looking monster.
Yeah.
And
cave-looking monster.
I don't know what to say.
It's got a lot of hair.
It does.
It's your guy from Baldur's Gate again.
No, that's an actual bear.
That's an actual bear.
And this guy is like more like a... He looks like
And what's your third monster?
my third monster is like, oh gosh, I don't know. It's
I
like,
haven't played the game, so I have no idea what the third monster
he has
is.
like this beak, kind of.
So he's a bird monster?
Kind of. Oh, what's that book called? It's like Where the Wild Things Are.
Does he? Okay,
It's kind of like monsters like that.
Okay, because I was thinking he looked like a plague doctor, but you.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
No. Okay,
like that.
all right.
Yeah, it's like a huge beak and then big eyes. And
what was
hairy.
that Jim Henson kind of puppet movie, The Dark Crystal? Because they're like the bird monsters in that too.
Yeah, so like that, less horrifying.
Less horrifying, less cadaverous.
Yeah, less poke your eyes out kind of monster.
I think they were supposed to be like modeled after vultures, and the fact that the two different species were in decline was showing the decadence and how they had to be reunified.
Oh,
There's
God.
a whole story. It's a thing.
Oh, God.
So
okay.
I think it's interesting because the topic you're going to talk about next is how women like things to look natural.
Mm-hmm.
But here you are talking about women enjoying themselves with unnatural monstrosities.
No. Okay, clarification on this one. I will speak up for all the book talk girlies and the monster lovers out there. They are not realistic in the books. Any of the Fey Lords are like very, 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 very different. They are very different. And also with the monster thing, it's the girls are after the personalities, honestly, because like, is it a sweet monster? Is he funny? Does he look after you? Like, is he a good time? You saw what Belle was like in Beauty and the Beast. The disappointment in her eyes afterwards.
Oh my God. Yeah, when he turned into a human, even as a kid, I was so disappointed in that. I was like, ugh. That's what he looks like.
I'm a big fan of the updated artwork. I don't know what artist did it, but like gave Beast a beard and made him look more like the Beast. Yes.
Yeah, make him more like monstrous.
He's like a lumberjack now.
Yeah.
He turns into Gaston.
Oh no. Oh my God.
But then being after the monsters, like the book trope is it's all about disregarding the external. I think with a lot of women it is if you put in the effort or if you connect with them, it doesn't matter if you look like a giant, beast type person rather than an Adonis with the personality of a shoe.
Oh.
I know which one I would rather have. Like.
Yeah.
But it's the thing. Do you pick Gaston or the Beast? It's one of those. Like, obviously, you don't care that he's like 7 foot and covered in hair. Yes, because that's the winning. That's
and that's why
like Gaston.
You like Gaston.
I love. No one's thick as Gaston.
Why?
No one's quick as Gaston.
Oh my God.
Gaston.
You can go where he wins.
Listen. I don't mean the remake Gaston. I mean the original animated movie.
Well, yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Movie. My premise is still that Gaston is the is the stereotypical heroic character.
Oh yeah, he definitely is.
And I know they tried to make him more evil in the remake, and they brought in a wizard.
They brought in a wizard?
Yeah, Hermione Granger.
Oh, that was such a... You're so stupid. Oh my God. I was like, they brought a wizard?
Well,
I
how
watch
else?
The remake.
Well, they wanted to make sure that there was enough magic to change the Beast back into a prettier version. Because obviously in the animated film, there wasn't enough magic to make him look pretty. Because at the end of the day, you just have this French-looking guy.
That's fair.
It should be fair. He was very Gallic looking.
Gallic.
But I think the difference between like Gaston and he's not a bad character. He's just fundamentally selfish. Is the main thing about him. He doesn't care about Belle. He doesn't care about her, her dreams, her intellect, or anything like that. And you put that in contrast to the Beast. He finds out that she's into books, gives her a library.
Yeah, as he should.
But Beast also has an agenda.
Every person has an agenda.
If every person has an agenda, then Gaston is a product of his environment, and Gaston is authentic in his not caring about Belle's useless intellect, at least from his perspective. Because in his mind, okay, this is what is important, this is what is not important, and you are not conforming to the social norms.
So hold on, are you saying that Gaston is like a tortured soul?
I'm saying that Gaston is the result of his upbringing. He is the best that town could produce.
How do we know that?
So why does Gaston get a free pass but nobody else does?
Oh, no, hold on. I'm not trying to give Gaston a free pass here. All I'm trying to say is I don't like how we vilify Gaston and we hold up the Beast when I think that they're both douchebags. You know, let's be fair. The whole story of the Beast is that he's this selfish prince, he's this terrible person and everything else, and there's some sort of supposed redemptive arc. The whole, you know, we've talked about this before, Annie, with regards to the taming of the rake and the taking the whole. My question is, why does the Beast get a shot aside from opportunity and blackmail and forced coercion, where Gaston doesn't get a shot? And all I'm trying to say is that there's a hypocrisy in this.
It is not, because you missed the point of the story. No, okay. He was all of that stuff up until the point where he let her go. He knew that he was gonna, die if he let her go or be the Beast forever, whatever. But the second that he let her go, he put every single choice into her hands. Like, he gave up on his agenda for trying to make her fall in love with him, and he put her needs above the needs of himself.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. My issue is the Beast was given the opportunity for this redemptive arc. She's a prisoner. She is forced to give the Beast this opportunity for the redemptive arc, but Gaston was not given the same opportunity for a redemptive arc. All I'm saying is that there's a hypocrisy there. Would Gaston, in a similar circumstance, is the Beast? If Gaston had captured Belle and held Belle at his house for a month, 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah, and then he also kidnapped and captured her father and extorted her. He's not a good guy.
The Beast kidnapped the father and extorted the Beast for Belle. They're the same type of character. I'm just saying that the Beast was given a shot at a redemptive arc. Gaston was not given the shot of the redemptive arc. And that's kind of the happenstance of luck that sometimes happens in life. But I don't want to say that the Beast is this better character than Gaston is, because at the beginning they're both awful, and arguably Gaston is less awful than the Beast is, and maybe the Gaston could have been redeemed. We don't know, but I'm just trying to stick up for this guy.
Okay.
Not because he's heroic, not because, you know.
I see where you're coming from. I see the argument that you're making.
Poor guy. No, LeFou was the only one who was showing love to Gaston.
Yeah, maybe
they didn't,
both got
and they
together.
cut that out of the Chinese version. It was very sad.
Wait, did they get together?
No, they had LeFou get together with some other guy, and then they
yeah.
cut that out of the Chinese version. So it was like, okay, whatever.
China just hates everybody. Anyways, but that's why I chose Monstrous Love. You know, you have a lot of that foreplay that you were talking about, you know, which makes sense with how women enjoy the foreplay to enjoy themselves. And it's about women exploring their sexuality with monsters. There is a power imbalance, but, you know, the women don't really mind. They have the trust and they like where the interactions are going, and so they're okay with the power imbalance. You know, they're not afraid to show their pleasure. Definitely did give, like, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey kind of vibes. But yeah. I did have more things to say, but I lost them because we went on that tangent.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, it's okay.
So when people complain in the comments about me, they are completely justified in this case.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Probably completely justified in the other cases, too, to be fair. So, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, the complaints are like, oh, he's a monster. And it's like, that's very true. What's your point?
Yeah.
So I did have a question about that.
What?
The natural looking bodies thing. Because seeing this intense defense of the monstrous characters, is it that women want to see natural looking female bodies and you don't really care if the male body is natural looking?
I don't mind if the male body is natural looking, because when I think of natural looking for a male body, I think of, you know, not an exaggerated dick. I do think a game with a main male character with, you know, good proportions. Well, I say good proportions, but not exaggerated proportions.
It's a good size. God.
I feel like that's what women are more looking for too.
Okay.
And then for females' bodies, the same thing. You know, where there's no real big exaggeration. You know, it looks like a body that would exist in real life.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on Team Natural, to be fair, because I mean, like, the monster thing is one thing, but it's completely different. If you're just talking about normal bodies, I personally would prefer, if you know, you're right on the dick thing. If they weren't intimidatingly massive, that would be
Yeah, I mean, coming from like a dragon game, I feel
yes, yeah.
I thought that all of the in the fantasy games, I thought it was just a default that all women had extra dimensional spaces in their sex organs that allowed any size object to go in there and not die.
yeah. I mean, that's definitely the case with Ravager, you know?
We do have a death via that. I will not say where it is.
I
What?
believe we've established it's in the
wow.
vagina.
Nope.
It's in the head.
Oh my gosh. Wait, are you saying that you have a death via dick?
Maybe.
Okay. Yeah,
Is
you
it-
don't have to spoil it.
Is it like how Superman kills women from his ejaculation?
Nope.
Wait, what?
You've never heard that story?
No, I haven't. What?
Well, because if you think about how Superman has all the super speed and everything else,
Oh,
and
so
given
it
the
would
fact that
would it go through
an
somebody?
ejaculation is a uncontrollable impulse.
Oh my God.
So he wouldn't be able to slow down his super speed with his ejaculation.
Wait, so would it just go through your body?
Yeah, and there's comics about it and everything where like the woman's head is blown off.
Oh
And,
my God.
and it's because it's
That's so scary.
well, yes, there are other reasons you should be scared of Superman than that.
Yeah, I know.
And I think the first person who postulated this, I remember, and said that's why Wonder Woman is the only person, because she's the only person who could possibly take.
Oh my God. Really?
Well, because
The super
she's I think she's a demigod or something. So
Yeah.
So there you go.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I have Come Home and College Craze. So with Come Home, you have some characters that are larger, some are smaller. One love interest is in a wheelchair, actually, and some love interests have different sexualities, and you have like this whole slew of like personalities and body types and identities all within 20 romanceable characters. So you do have a lot of variety.
I can't imagine with 20 romanceable characters that every narrative and every storyline is going to be as compelling.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think one of the problems, especially if it's a harem type game where you can choose which ones you romance and which ones you don't romance, I think that that's great from a buffet standpoint, but from a meaningful connection.
Yeah, you do run into that problem where you do have all of these characters and it's kind of a lot. I mean, you do, like when you go to like a buffet, for example, like what you said, and you have all these options and you don't know which one to get. Some looks better than the other, and so you go with that. But it does, I guess, make it so that you can replay the game and, explore their avenues as well. But yeah, you're right. You don't get like that really deep connection.
But then this wasn't on your list of story-driven games. This
Yeah,
was on
I
your
already
list
talked
of
about those.
realistic body proportions.
Yeah, this is
so.
for natural-looking bodies.
Yeah.
So that's what this game is good about, but not really good for the story-driven part. Should I go into the story?
You can if you want. You can be like.
I mean, it's a pretty standard
Yeah,
story. Like your dad has disappeared, and there's like the sci-fi aspect to that. But it's you kind of ignore it because
because
like,
you've got women to pursue.
Yeah. So
it's like I'll find Dad eventually.
yeah, at some point. But it's like a time management sandbox visual novel type
And
of game.
there's no. You're not on a clock, so you can.
No,
Yeah,
you're
so
not.
it's-
Yeah, I mean,
it's-
when I say time management, I meant like you have a morning, afternoon,
yeah.
evening, night time kind of situation.
So that kind of standard sandbox fare.
Yeah.
And what's your second game?
My second game is College Craze, and so this is a game where it does have character customization, and so character customization is weird because usually games with character customization, you can create the character that you want, and so that may have exaggerated proportions or that may have more natural looking proportions. But with this game, it's much more limited, where you only get to customize your skin tone, your hairstyle, and your hair color. And so you don't get to customize your bodily proportions. The art style is interesting. It's like realistic, cartoony kind of art style.
So it's cartoony but realistic proportions?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And throughout the visual novel, bodies are shown to be pretty standard looking, or what you could see in like real life. Proportions aren't exaggerated in any way that would seem impossible to accomplish.
So when you were making this list, were there a lot of games that you felt you had to choose from, or did you feel you were choosing from a much smaller pool?
Oh, definitely much smaller.
So is that the big reason that you think that there aren't as many women playing games?
Yeah, well, I think because, the flavors that women like what we talked about, story-driven, women enjoying themselves, and natural-looking bodies, those three types of flavors aren't really seen together.
Mm-hmm.
They're mostly seen separate from each other. And so it's harder.
What are so if you were to list what you think the most popular flavors are, what would you put like the most popular flavors are?
College.
Okay.
Harem. Family. Corruption. Yeah.
So it seems that it would be harder to make a meaningful connection between a main character and 6 other characters than it would between a main character and 1 other character. Mm-hmm. It seems like it would just be harder to do.
It is harder to do.
And it's hard enough to show a connection in the first place. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine how much harder it would be to show a real connection in a harem configuration. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's impossible, just saying it's a lot harder. Mm-hmm. So, and then a corruption games tend to be very much about an involuntary process that doesn't always show the enjoyment of the character. In many transformation games, in many corruption games, you're seeing the character is in agony. The character is not enjoying the process, at least in the beginning especially. So it sounds to me like some of the most popular flavors are almost precluding, or at least are much more difficult to include the types of things that women tend to enjoy. And so it's kind of like, well, okay, I guess that's... Yeah. I mean, why else do you think that women aren't playing these games?
I would say a lot of it is shame-based. It's not something that, women open up and talk about or anything like that. So there's that, but there's also the types of content that are available. So if you do have something that is very much... sorry, I'm just going to start again on that one.
The interesting thing for me is you have so many female authors on AO3. You have so many female developers making romantic Otome games. It would seem that there should be a lot more exploration of this topic. Is it just that because the games are more explicit, is that chasing women away? Is that making...
2 of the games that I talked about have female developers.
So, but you said it was a much smaller pool to draw from.
That's true, yes.
So how many...
Oh, no, 3, sorry.
So, okay, but in that case, you're saying, well, you're drawing from female developer games. Mm-hmm. I think there are very few female developer games where there are a ton of female developer games when it comes to Otome games.
Yes, Otome is a very popular genre. Do you know what Otome is, Marina?
Nope.
No? Oh, okay. I'll explain it. So Otome games are app games that you can get on the App Store. You can get them on the PC, but they're mostly in the mobile app kind of department. And it's basically where you play as usually, now there are exceptions, usually a female protagonist, and you have, I would say, 4, maybe more types of men that you can get with and pursue. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of fighting each other for you. A big one that I played is called Mystic Messenger. It's where this female protagonist gets kind of stuck in a room, like an apartment room, and she has to converse through her phone with the main male protagonists throughout the day. And after interacting with her for a period of time, they start to like her. And, they fight over each other. And so...
It's Beauty and the Beast all over again with the Stockholm Syndrome. Locking her up. I mean, seriously,
They don't lock her up.
You said she's trapped in a room.
Yeah, but not from them. From this other guy.
She's still trapped.
Well, actually, never mind. I'm not going to get into that.
You're like, which
there's
one
a
of
whole
us
lore thing
aren't
that
trapped?
I never got. There's a whole lore thing that I didn't get into, but this one guy may want to trap you again.
You're like, okay, whatever.
whatever. But that's basically the premise of these. Like, you have the main female protagonist, and you have the men fighting over her.
And the funny thing, you covered this like 3 years ago, where Otome games split off from what eventually became Eroji games, and they were all the same thing in the beginning.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and Ravager is just the spiritual successor to 30 years of this. Oh God, it started in the 80s, so it's almost 40 years of this type of gameplay.
Yeah.
And the Otome games tend to be less sexually explicit.
It's some of them are like they imply it, but it never really happens. And then you do have the sexual kind of tension with that game, and then you have like the big kiss at the end that happens.
The kiss at the end. What is this? A Bollywood movie?
and you get some like fireworks sometimes, and then they start dating, and then and then it ends because once you get to that relationship, and it's kind of over then.
So it's about the chase, not necessarily the after.
It's about the erotic tension.
Okay.
I think Otome games really explore that well.
Right.
There's actually an Otome game that does have explicit content. It's called Speakeasy. I'm not gonna speak too much about it.
Aren't there like yaoi Otome games as well?
Oh yeah, that's why I said it depends. It's usually a female protagonist, but sometimes there is a male protagonist, and they're vied over by.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So we see that women consume fiction where it's male focused, homosexual male focused. We see women consume fiction where it could be games where it's men dating men, or stories where it's, and that seems to be a standard societal thing. Okay. Why don't we see men consuming games and books where it's just lesbian relationships? Because ostensibly men seem to like lesbian sex, at least from all the studies they do. Men seem to. Why do they not want stories and fiction what focuses on that, as much at least?
Well, I feel like the lesbian games are made for lesbian women.
Okay.
Well, not specifically lesbian.
No, I get you. But
identified
it's a lot easier to find a yaoi game than it is to find a yuri game.
That's very true, yeah.
So I'm just wondering why there seems to be this gap in consumption and what you think about it. I mean, it just seems unusual to me. And where do Futanari games fall under this?
I mean, take, I guess, maybe like Star Periphery. That's a main male protagonist. That's really popular right now. But then you also have like Having a Hard Time, which is a female protagonist game. I don't know where I was going with that.
No, it just seems to be that there's some asymmetry there.
Yeah.
And things don't have to line up perfectly, but it does seem to be unusual that one thing would be so represented across media, because it's not like it's just the games we're talking about. It's also books. I mean, how much of AO3 is fiction for women and it's intended for a female reader, and it's about the male characters getting with each other? It seems to be a thing that is much more. Is it a permissive thing? Is that men feel that they're not allowed to do this where women are? I don't know. I mean,
I think you would have to answer that one for us, because we don't know how guys feel about it. So you would have to be the one to tell us.
I haven't seen any data that shows male. The problem with most of the studies when it comes to the consumption of adult content is that most of the studies kind of see adult content as a bad thing. See it as sinful, see it as harmful, see it as hurtful. And it was only really in the 90s where we started even considering that there was a benefit to adult content, as opposed to adult content was almost uniformly seen as a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, the research that I search up for these things, I think I go from like 2014, 2015 to now. I don't really stick in with like the early 2000s, 90s stuff. So it's just wrong.
There's a lot of difficulty in finding that, and I think it would be interesting to see is, we can say, okay, men like this and men don't like that, And that's useful, but I'm just looking at this from a consumption standpoint. If this was something that men enjoyed, you would think that we would see more of it. Because yaoi male fiction seems to be something that a large portion of women enjoy. I think we can look at the data and we can say, yes, women purchase this, women read this, women play these games. That seems to be clear. It's just, I find it unusual that there wouldn't be men enjoying the same thing unless there's just some differential going on here that I'm unaware of. And I'm just asking because I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, I don't think there is like a definitive answer.
Well, we rarely have a definitive answer on anything, but we at least, I feel like on this particular question, we're completely fumbling in the dark, where usually we at least have like an inkling of an idea.
Well, it's just because the space is just so, like, just not researched. And
yeah.
So the things that you have questions about have not been researched. So we don't really have anything to go off of, just our opinions. And so
I think the takeaway I'm getting from this is that you think that more female developers would create a space where there are going to be more female players.
But yeah, because female developers,
at least telling their stories.
Yeah, at least from the female developers of the games that I have found, do have that kind of thinking about the flavors and about, the teasing, the story, the natural bodies, at least sometimes. And they're thinking about that when they're creating these games. And so I think if they do think about that, of course they're going to have a more female population of players.
Do you think that a female developer is going to find commercial success, or is it going to be harder for a female developer to find commercial success?
I think it's possible, but I think it's going to take a while. I don't think the space is open enough to female developers, at least yet. It is more open than it was, 3 years ago.
Because
it's just a slow process.
My knee-jerk response to this is to be that kind of, well, I don't care if it's a male developer, I don't care if it's a female developer. I just care about if I'm going to enjoy the game. I care about if it's going to represent the flavors that I want.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that male developers can't create a game like this.
But here's the other side of that coin. Obviously, in this space, from what you guys have said today, the male developers aren't really providing the flavor outlets that women tend to look for.
Well, I think male developers are creating the game that they want to make. And so by making the game that they want to make, they're not really catering towards the female audience. They're catering towards the male audience, or the audience that they have.
Yeah, exactly.
And, sometimes there is going to be, females that like that, and then males that like female flavors. I'm getting mixed up now. I'm just saying that it's all subjective, but...
So, you're saying if you were to make a game for women to optimize, commercial success, or at least appeal to the base of women, it would be a slow burn style game with erotic tension,
yes,
maybe some monsters, with natural looking female characters who appear to genuinely be enjoying themselves.
Yeah. Or an Otome game with sex.
An Otome game with sex.
Honestly, that feels like the perfect, feels like the way to go.
So do you make a Steam Otome game and then just have a sex patch, an adult patch for it?
I have seen Otome games
that way it can still be sold in Germany?
Yeah, pretty much.
So what do you think about this?
I would say that if there are people out there of any gender who do want to make it, I think it's a big untapped market, to be honest. Because with Ravager, Foreman went and made the stuff he specifically wants to put in the game, and has limits to the stuff that he will put in the game as well. But there's a book and a game and a movie out there for everyone, and I think it is a big untapped thing. Personally, I would really, really love just story-driven romantic content. That could be dark skewing. I enjoy the villain art, but it'd be good if you had those kind of the choices. Like you could end up with the hero, end up with the villain, end up with a merchant character, whatever. And the reason I I do like Ravager is because it's a sandbox and you can choose your own path. And I think that Matrix, the writer, has done a really, really good job letting you have fleshed out characters. And I think that is what women really appreciate, is fleshed out characters that you can believe. Because if you do have a two-dimensional one, like this one has blonde hair, this one has brown hair, they both have six packs. Ooh, it's not exactly, it's all right, but it's not the most challenging or engaging or a game that you can play again and again and again. So if anyone is out there and wants to make some, lovely steamy content for the ladies, then please, please do. Please.
But this one
Yeah.
has blonde hair and this one has brown hair and each has a six-pack. That's Ryu and Ken. That's Street Fighter.
Oh, God.
But I was thinking of all of the Twilight stuff.
Yeah.
Well, they were totally different characters. One of them was a shapeshifter and the other one was Cedric Diggory.
But yeah, if there are people out there who would like to make that big untapped market, I think, because I think shame is starting to lift, and it is genuinely hard to come into a space like this and be open about your preferences, especially as a woman, because you're much more likely to get shamed. Because if admitting it as a woman, it's one of those things like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that, and that's where we come back to the thing earlier about needing permission to go and enjoy yourself. I know that is a big personal thing for me. People need that permission to relax, and when it's been trained into you your whole life of, no, you can't relax, you can't enjoy yourself, you have to put others first, which is a big thing for females, to have that permission to be able to do it, or in the case of corruption stuff or in dark romance, that choice of being good and virtuous and having to put other people first is taken away, and you physically like, oh no, I have no choice but to enjoy this thing. It's kind of very freeing. So I think that's a good thing that women, in my opinion, might enjoy.
I think it would be cool to have, do you know Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Oh, of course.
Oh my god, imagine a game like that with Angel and then the other guy, what's his name, Spike?
Spike, yeah.
And then how Angel goes like evil. That would be so cool.
Definitely.
That's okay, but Gaston's not okay. It's killing me. It's killing me.
Listen,
He's
sure.
He's not the right villain.
No, that's the thing, is that Gaston would 100% be a selfish lover. I'm just saying. He's obsessed about the boys getting made. He doesn't particularly care how.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy who would just like come in you and be like, that was good, right? And like you're just sitting there.
Yeah.
Are you saying that all of that egg consumption wouldn't give him like massive stamina?
Oh. He does eat a lot of eggs, yeah.
Poor Gaston. I did not expect coming in here that he would be savaged so cruelly.
Listen, I'm sure there's tons of fanfics out there that you can read where Belle gets with Gaston.
Let's be fair.
This episode is meant to be about what women like today. So we will have Beast. You are very free to have Gaston.
Exactly.
And
Gaston is all yours.
Let's be fair. Gaston would have gone off and been killed in a war in the next 5 years anyway. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's all he had really to look forward to. So, I mean...
Oh, jeez, yeah.
The candle that burns twice as bright burns shorter. Oh, well. I always feel like voice acting can make a story better, but if it's a bad story, it doesn't matter how good the voice acting is.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that voice acting can make a sexual encounter better, but if it's awkward or weird...
I did want to bring up, like, would a game be better if it was partially voiced or if it was fully voiced? Fully voiced meaning that all the characters are talking during, just interactions and then sex scenes, or partial voice acting where it's just the sex scenes and not the talking interactions kind of thing.
I would be fascinated to see how it works in the space, because all I know about how voice acting works in adult games is that it is a huge portion of the budget.
Yeah, it's very expensive.
It can make a game much, much more expensive, which makes it a real risk for a developer
to actually do it.
Because it definitely gives more to a game, but does it give enough return on investment more to a game? And I don't know if any of us know that answer yet.
I do.
Oh, you do? Okay, please.
Yeah, I'm ready.
It is definitely because of very good writers, and Bowman has said on multiple occasions that people have come back to the game and gone for Ravager than the other one. I was really, really, really lucky to get on with him in the beginning, just because, you know, the acting and stuff like that, and we were friends. We met via connected over this thing via Kinky Conversation, so that's kind of how it got started and how I was able to voice a lot of the characters for it. But from a lot of the feedback that we get on the positive feedback channel, people do really, really appreciate the voice acting. But I think voice acting can also be detrimental, because I've heard some, you know, people who, when they do go on a game, they straight up mute it. And I suppose it's just like any acting. If you're going to go to the theatre or something and sit through an hour and a half of not spectacular stuff, you wouldn't think that it was a very, very good script. So it's up to everyone to work together, like for the voice actors to be as good as they possibly can, for the writing, for the devs. Like, we're super, super lucky with our team, ridiculously lucky.
I think there's a meme in the adult game space where the control button people just hold down all the time to skip through all the dialogue so that they can get to the sex scenes. And I think that there's going to be some element of that from any consumer base. It doesn't matter how good the story is written. It doesn't matter how good the voice acting is. Like people skipping through cutscenes in a AAA video game. How many people who play Baldur's Gate actually watch the cutscenes?
I watch them.
Well, no, I do too, but
Yeah.
the fact that you can skip the cutscenes makes it seem like that is something that people want to do.
Yeah, it's like how rules are formed. Like, it's like, oh, that must have happened enough that they made
for
a rule
people to
for
want to do it.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that people are going to skip a scene when they're replaying or doing a speed run or something like that, but I do wonder. One of the jokes with MMOs is no one ever listens to the quest instructions. You are guilty of that.
I am so guilty of that. I just go with the arrow points me to.
So that quest has a cutscene. Do you listen to the cutscene or do you skip the cutscene?
No,
you listen to
I
that.
listen to the cutscene.
But you just don't read the instructions.
Yeah.
So in your case, the fact that it's voiced makes it more likely that you will listen to it.
Yes.
Because if it's just a text instruction, you're skipping through it and then trying to find out where your mini-map's telling you to go.
Yes, pretty much, yeah.
So in that case...
But I'm also, cutscenes are usually animated, like especially in the AAA kind of game space.
I remember there was a
watching
time
a movie.
period, showing my age, where you would have you would have it almost like read, that you would see the text, but then somebody would be reading it in the dialogue and things like that, where you didn't have the full animated cutscene. And I think in adult games, no, we don't have the money yet to have a lot of games with full animations. Mm-hmm. It's just Ravager is never going to have fully animated scenes. That's just not, and it can have some animations, but it's never going to be like, it's just not how that works. Like a game like a Treasure of Nadia has a lot of animations in it, but it's still not, you still have other gameplay, and those are still cutscenes as opposed to, and the 3D games, like a Baldur's Gate, has scenes, but they're still cutscenes and regular gameplay. So I do think there's this interplay of video and audio with whatever the regular gameplay is, and what can we do to get people more engrossed in that and less likely to skip it. And I think good voice acting, as we saw specifically with Baldur's Gate 3, seems to make a big impact. And I wonder how many stories in a video game were as good as Baldur's Gate 3's story, but because Baldur's Gate was so good at interweaving the gameplay and the voice acting and the video, we noticed it this time around. There could be all of these other games that we played and we just skipped everything that were amazing stories, but we just didn't know because we weren't compelled to engage with it on that level. And how many adult games have an amazing story, but because the delivery is not terrific or the pacing is a little bit off, are we not experiencing it like we could?
I think with Baldur's Gate as well, I wound up kind of getting onto Baldur's Gate via TikTok, specifically because all the Asterian content came across my feed. Who is this voice actor? I love this voice actor. Fantastic. Let's go and play the game.
Yeah, and all the edits.
Yeah, they were absolutely brilliant. And it's the first time where I've been like, I'm specifically going to go and play this game because of this voice actor. So, and when you get cross content stuff like that, it's brilliant. And I do think that the industry standard for everything is going up. I mean, just looking at the graphics that we had however many years ago, now it's completely different.
I would like to see more voice acting in games. I know there's an expense aspect.
Yeah.
I know that in this space, it is hard for a game to be solvent. It is hard for a game to finish. And
Yeah.
when you add in voice acting, you are increasing the cost. You're also increasing the potential length of development.
I feel like Subverse
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
what's it called? Carnal Instinct.
Yeah.
Does
Okay.
a really good job.
Games
at
with millions of dollars of
I know,
investment.
but
That's not even fair.
But that's the thing.
Yeah.
They're like these budgets of like $1 million. And so they have the time and the money to do that, especially with Carnal Instinct. I mean, they're restarting their entire game on Unreal 5.
Yeah.
So they're completely like redoing the game, and they're having voice acting. So it's just going to
Subverse
take.
is supposed to finish this year, supposedly.
I know.
Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, maybe.
And the voice acting in Subverse is very good.
Yeah.
It's almost one of those situations where it's so good it makes it feel, because how frozen those early characters were and how the lips did not match up with the, now they do, they synced up the lips with the talking, because why are you gonna have moving lips and not have them sync up? It's like, what are you doing? Just have it be static or not, but don't. I'm like, I feel like I'm watching bad dubbing.
Oh God.
But they did fix it, even if they don't still have a version of the game in Mandarin. All those Chinese backers not getting any love.
Seems like such an easy fix too.
I don't know if it's an easy fix or not. It's once again, it's an expense, and
I feel like they could spare the money.
I
to do
feel
that.
like I would have made that choice too, but who
Yeah.
are we to armchair quarterback the development of this game?
But speaking of good voice acting, I do think Ravager has good voice acting. It has a lot of voice acting. Like there are so many characters, even side characters, that have voice acting, which is pretty rare.
Doesn't she do like 5 characters?
Yeah, I know. How many characters do you do?
5, I think. The one Adel, Marianne, Thea, Naho, and Mina. There's a big crew of us, like, and everyone is absolutely lovely. They're like the nicest people ever.
Yeah, that's nice. It's always good to have like a good community.
Yeah, and everyone's friends. So
That's also really nice.
so yeah, I would say if you're a dev, get friends that do voice acting. Yeah, I do think it's a big expanding industry at the moment. But I would also say, depending on what kind of voice acting you do, it attracts different kind of people. We're very, very lucky on the Discord server that we have, because Foreman hits everyone with the hammer if people are disrespectful. But I think that's something that maybe in other spaces, women getting into it might need to be conscious of, the kind of disrespect that comes along with it, saying like, oh well, you voice this, so you must be into a particular type of thing, or you must be a slut, or you must be whatever.
I mean, I can see where they're coming from. Robin Williams played a serial killer one time, so he's obviously a monster who's irredeemable, right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's the separation of reality, and obviously, like 98% of people get it, and then there's that little 2% that sneak through. So
when you have 8 billion people, 2% is a very large number.
that's very true.
That's true.
So that's 160 million people, which is like Western Europe.
Just that whole place.
So that's a lot of people. So if you are a woman looking to get into voice acting, what advice would you give?
I would say make sure that you're comfortable with the person that you're working with. don't do anything that you don't particularly want to do, and be cautious in spaces if you are doing, like the spicier kind of stuff, because people will assume stuff about you because for some reason, it's construed as different than normal acting. There's the veil is kind of a bit thinner.
Because of the sexual nature of some of the subject matter.
Yeah, it's basically it. I mean, it's a lot of things. Like, people do crossover characters with who they play all the time. Like, you can conflate being, like a total Loki girl as like, oh my god, I'm in love with Tom. They're different. They are completely different beings. So just be aware that character bleed can and does happen. So yeah, that's one little thing to look out for. But if you do LARP or anything like that, you will know your character bleeds, and that other people will see you as that character. But also just have fun with it. You're in a booth, you're having fun. It's a ridiculously fun job. Like, don't take it massively seriously. It's fun, it's entertainment. You're there to entertain people, and everyone's just there for a good time. So yeah, chill. It's not the end of the world.
What are the mechanisms that voice actresses use to find clientele, that developers use to find voice actresses? I know you met through a friend. I mean, is that just kind of where we are right now from a development standpoint, or are there mechanisms in place to put talent with developers?
I have no idea. Genuinely, I have no idea. I just happened to know Foreman. We were speaking about something completely different, basically, on like a kink conversation. And he's like, yes, damsels, princess, da-da.
Dragons.
By the way, I'm doing this video game. Like,
Yes.
oh, that's nice.
I'm looking for women to feed to a dragon, and you seem to be the perfect fit.
Yeah, totally. And it was really, really fun. I was like, hell yeah, I'm down for that. So yeah, for me it was right time, right place, right kinky conversation. I'm sure there are other ways, and I know that a couple of our voice actors do have they have socials. So we've got Grayscale has socials, Nya, Nyonyo, and they'll do different jobs and stuff. But for me, I literally just face planted into this.
I feel that. I feel like I did the same thing.
Now with my
Kind of just fell.
with the trope of virgin sacrifices to dragons and stuff like that, I think face planting into it seems to be the norm more than anything else. Just toss her in the cave and run. Tie her up on the altar and get the hell out of here.
I mean, that sounds like a perfect Wednesday night to me, to be fair. So
it sounds like your last Wednesday night. There will be no more Wednesday nights. There's a finality to this. I mean, the dragon's gonna have more Wednesday nights, but and maybe your Wednesday night will be in dragon poo form, but not in your current variation.
Jeez.
You never know. I could get rescued. The dragon might change his mind. It's all...
The dragon might change his mind. There's that Beauty and the Beast thing again.
Yeah.
No, it's the redemptive arc. So what if he was a horrible monster to all these other people and doomed this whole castle full of people? He acted good one time, and that makes it totally okay.
You cannot imagine the amount of stories that are like that.
I know the amount because they're ridiculous. They're
know.
ridiculous because they're predicated upon this idea that humans, because a human's behavior is different in this one case, that is somehow going to mean that this human is magically a different person. And that doesn't mean that redemption isn't real. And that doesn't mean that we can't grow and become better, but this seems like a really thin line of reasoning. And I know it's fiction, and I know it's suspension of disbelief and everything else, but damn it, somebody needs to stick up for Gaston.
And that will be just you.
Well, thank you so much for being on today. We really appreciate having you.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out my YouTube channel, my Patreon, and my Discord, where I'm probably the most active. I also want to thank Marina Montague for joining us today and providing her expertise on today's topic. I will provide links to Ravager where you can contact her and hang out on the Ravager Discord. You can find the Shame Free Gaming Podcast on Spotify if you're interested in listening there instead of on YouTube. All the links to the games and studies that we've talked about can be found on my Patreon. Thanks so much for listening, and I will see you next time.